Welcome to Chapter 28, Minor Bodies of the Solar System, Part 1, Composition and Structure. A satellite is a body that orbits a larger body. There are two types: artificial satellites, those made by humans. Sputnik number 1 was the first satellite to ever go around the Earth. It was built by the Soviet Union. You may know that as Russia. Explorer 1 was the first satellite for the United States. Natural satellites, on the other hand, those include the moons, such as our own moon, or moons that orbit other planets. Six of the planets in our solar system have moons. Mercury and Venus do not have moons. And again, Moon is our Earth's natural satellite. The Apollo missions had one major focus, and that was to put an American on the moon. This turned out to be very successful because there were 6 lunar landing missions. Of those 6 missions, there were 2 astronauts from each mission that walked on the moon. That means 6 times 2, 12 Americans have walked on the moon. Moon's surface gravity is less than 17% of Earth's. The moon is not large enough and therefore not strong enough to hold an atmosphere permanently. It does have a tenuous atmosphere. The temperature, because there's no real strong atmosphere, varies a lot more than that of Earth's temperature. No atmosphere, no insulation. Daytime temperature, 134 degrees Celsius, and night is negative 170 degrees Celsius. Definitely not something that we can handle without a spacesuit. The moon rotates on its axis once every 29 and a half days. The moon is tidally locked with the Earth. This means that only one side of the moon faces the Earth. So how can we see the moon? The moon does not generate its own light. It reflects light. The light actually comes from the sun. The lunar surface is made up of a few different types of rock. The lighter areas that we see on the moon that faces us are mainly anorthosites, which are silica and oxygen-based minerals. The dark areas, or maria, from mare, are basalt. Dark lava from the moon's interior oozed out when large impacts cracked the surface, causing the lava to flood the low basins. These formed about 4 billion years ago. And there's breccia on the surface of the moon. Every time meteorites hit the moon, it broke the rock surface up into angular fragments, and these fragments were welded together due to the heat of the impact. This diagram shows an object hitting the surface of the moon. One thing you may notice is that even though the meteorite is coming in at an angle, the ending or resulting crater is still round. This is Tycho, a very large crater on the moon. Craters formed about 4 billion years ago on our moon. A crater is a bowl-shaped depression that forms on the surface of an object when a falling body strikes the object's surface or when an explosion occurs. The surface is impacted by this debris. The crust was cracked, and again the molten rock, which becomes lava, oozed out and flooded the low areas. That became the basalt, the dark areas that we see on the moon. The surface of the moon is covered with craters, also with rills and ridges. Sounds like a potato chip. Rills are long, deep channels that run through the maria. We believe they were probably lava channels. And ridges are long, narrow elevations of rock that rise out of the Moria. We believe that these formed as the Moria, the lava, cooled and shrank, causing these ridges. Take a moment. Name two features of the moon that we've talked about. Moria, craters, ridges, and rills. Lunar rocks are similar, but not the same as Earth rocks. There are different amounts of elements. We also have regolith, which we have on Earth, but the regolith on the moon is different from Earth. The rock was broken into small fragments and dust by the impacts. The depth of the regolith on the moon is anywhere from 1 to 6 meters. That's really deep. There's no visible water on the moon's surface. Moon rocks are very dry. Also, there are elements with low melting points, such as sodium, that are not present, but we find those on Earth. So the moon, it's similar, but not the same. The lunar rocks are igneous, and most rocks near the surface are mainly oxygen and silicates. Rocks from the lunar highlands are light-colored, coarse-grained anorthosites with more calcium and aluminum. In the Moria, the low-lying areas, they're basalts, mafic, dark, contain more iron, and contain titanium, magnesium, and iron. The breccia, rock made of angular rock fragments, is found pretty much everywhere. Feel free to pause the video at any time to be able to read through the slides. The moon's interior is made up of 3 layers. The crust, notice that the crust is thicker on the opposite side of the moon than it is on the side that faces us. The mantle in the middle, solid rock, and the core, which is primarily iron, but it's not very big. This is the end of Chapter 28, Part 1, Moon's Composition and Structure.